Hey, Shell Point, John High, your Academy Manager, back with you to talk to you about another exciting series that we have with Professor Kerr in the Academy. This one is a 5-part series on the history of the Middle East. Pretty exciting, huh? Well, let's talk to us first, Professor, about just maybe an overview of why we should study the Middle East.
Thank you, John. Good introduction.
Yeah.
It's great to be back at Shell Point, and this is one of my favorite subjects.
Yeah.
The Middle East is fascinating to us because it represents the first in many things.
Yes.
Agriculture started in southern Turkey, northern Syria, about 11,000 BC. So the first writing then developed around about 5,000 BC. It's a toss-up between Iraq, who claims that they started it first, or Iran, but they probably didn't, or Egypt, and they're both vying for each other, about 4,500. And it's interesting to know that writing came about not for religious purposes or for government administration or for celebrating the wars or the kings. It came about simply so that I could record that I'd sold you something or bought something from you.
So it was a commerce thing.
It all started with trade.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's
why it's fascinating to us, because 2,500 years BC, the pyramids were constructed, which were the largest construction until the Middle Ages.
Yeah.
So that's why we're fascinated by the Middle East, and also, of course, modern times. The political sagas of post-First World War really have captured our attention, both good and bad, and we'll carry on the 5 parts we'll bring up to modern times.
Yeah, a lot of times when we think about history, I think of American history, it's only a couple hundred years, but here we're talking about thousands of years of history.
Indeed.
Opportunities for us. So the first session is Monday, February 17th, 4:30 in the Grand Cypress Room. So session 1, talk to us a little bit about the beginning.
Yes. Well, we stopped chasing our food on legs and started growing our food around about 10,000, 11,000 BC. And it's that fact that we then were able to create villages, stay put, develop our own agriculture. It meant that we had time to do other things, to have specialization for teachers, for lawyers, for government administration, to do great works, to build temples, to build canals. So all of that came because we stopped moving around chasing deer and antelope, and we actually grew our own food.
Gotcha.
And from then, we start to see the development of religion. In the Middle East, we see the 2 great civilizations, which were ancient Egypt and let's call it the Mesopotamia, Iraq today. And we should not forget, although just outside the area of the Middle East, the Indus civilization was the greatest civilization by population, greater than Egypt and greater than Iraq. That petered out, but the other 2 kept on going. And then we look on Egypt very favorably, mainly because we can go to Egypt today and see pyramids and temples and obelisks and palaces. And yet in the Middle East, in Iraq, if we look at the great city-states in Iraq like Ur, Uruk, etc., Eridu, they were as fine in terms of their buildings as was Egypt, but they built in brick. They didn't have stone, and it's all gone away. So if you go to Babylon today, it's just a pile of bricks. It's really sad. And yet at one time it was even greater than any of the cities in ancient Egypt. Then we move on to the great cataclysmic event, which is called the invasion of the Sea Peoples, where most of the ancient civilizations in Turkey and also in Greece and also in Syria, those are great civilizations that have been running for 1,000, 1,500 years, were totally decimated, wiped out, and never rebuilt. And these people were marauding, huge numbers of people coming from the central area of Russia today, the Caucasus, and they destroyed Mycenae, they destroyed the Hittites, and they only were stopped by the ancient Egyptians and allowed to settle in the land, and they became known as the Philistines.
Okay, which then helps us better understand our Bibles a little bit, right?
That's right. The Philistines were given a piece of land on the coast, whereas the ancient Israel was populating the central highlands, which is much poorer and drier, and the 2 came into conflict. And we finish off the first part by saying how the growth of Israel was documented, and then how they fought against the Philistines, who had been sophisticated warriors and farmers and traders for 400 or 500 years, and how they began to try and occupy the same space.
Oh, and this is just session one.
Session one.
There we go. Well, Shell Point, you definitely want to get connected to this series. Once again, this is a 5-part series. This first series on the history of the Middle East is Monday, February 17th, 4:30 in the Grand Cypress Room. Sign up through the concierge desk. Look forward to see you there.